what's his name? JDM. I'm going to give you the entirety of our conversation, which I think you took a screenshot of some of it and tweeted out anyways, correct?
Yeah, it sounded like you guys had hundreds and hundreds of DMs.
Yes. So Wednesday, when this broke, I said, hey, saw your tweets. Any interest in coming on with me in the next week or so? Because I was on vacation. Hey, Kirk, I'm a social media guy. I don't do content. Dave Vergaz, and my whole Max Scherzer thing, whatever.
Yeah.
I said, no problem. I'm happy to have the conversation anytime offline also. Respect the passion, even if we disagree on the Adam Jones incident. Hope all is good at Barstool for you so far. Then we just go back and forth. I also didn't want to ask you to call off the dogs and thought sharing a friendly conversation might help weather the storm of the Minifans a bit. I should have asked beforehand, and for that I apologize. This DM thing. I said, don't worry about it. It's fine. They are a good, loyal group. If you give them a fair shake, they will always do the same. Yeah. That is the entirety. That is all I said about.
What does this have to do with me?
Because I never apologize for the Minifans, you shithead. And if somebody shut your fat fucking mouth for a second, listen to me. You understand?
Yeah, I never saw you did. Yes,
Shut the fuck up. Shut up. So when somebody criticizes the Minifans like that, or says that I apologize for them, and you're on with the guy, right away you should say to him, that would have never fucking happened. Fuck you. What the fuck are you talking about? We don't apologize for the Minifans. They fucking put bread in your fucking butter. They allow you to put food in your fat fucking stupid face and tell your dumb fucking jokes. They are why you exist. Right. Play the sound again. I just read you exactly what was said. I don't blame him. I blame Mike.
I do appreciate it.
How would I know?
Hold on.
What are you talking about?
There's no way I would do that. There's no way I would do that.
What do you mean?
Apologize for the Minifans. That would never happen. So why would you say that?
Because he says that's not exactly what he said right after that.
Yeah, but that's different than saying that's not what he said.
What?
Not exactly what he said is still implying that I could apologize for the Minifans or inferring that.
No, not really.
Of course it is.
He says that's not
Steve,
what he said.
what is your take, real quick?
He does follow it up and he says
that's not what he said.
I don't know if he exactly apologized.
He didn't say that's not what he said. He said it's not exactly what he said.
I think you could have jumped down his throat on it.
Of course. This is not even.
So I
want that fucking thing taken down.
All right, gentlemen. The rundown. Friday. It is the 10th of July. Red for Maine here. We've got two new guests to the rundown. We've got Ziggy, my favorite dog. Doggo, how you doing, Ziggy?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Doing well. And then we got Visionless Dave. VD, how are you doing, sir?
Doing quite well. Thank you for asking.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you for coming in. We heard the Mike's disloyalty question mark. We'll figure out where we stand on that. We heard that sound coming in. And I know you guys watched the interview that Mike had. And then I think we were exchanging some text messages that Mike was going to get killed by Kirk the next day. And that certainly did happen. Kirk jumped all over him. I loved it in a way because I just love when Kirk's upset and he's going off and he's getting on somebody. I think it's great. It was great radio at EEI and it's great on podcasts too. But I end up feeling bad for Mike in a way because I really want him to put up a fight, and that's where I stand. But Ziggy, what were you thinking when you were listening to that?
Yeah, I mean, Mike's interview it was fine from like a racial discussion standpoint, but from a content standpoint, it was pretty boring. So luckily we have Kirk who can, take the proverbial chicken shit, turn it into chicken soup. He found something that bothered him. He cranked it to 11, really got some classic Kirk Minahan yelling at Mike. I mean, yeah. I did feel a little bad for Mike because I definitely didn't come away from that thinking, oh, he wasn't defending the Minifans. He's not he's not loyal to us, but I understood Kirk's point, of course. And yeah, it was just great to hear Kirk unleash on Mike.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I when I heard it back in Mike's exact quote, I had it written down is, I did a shitty job. What do you expect from me? It's like a point, man, as a gearhead, as I am, like it breaks my heart to hear Mike say it, but at the same time, it's like, at what point, Mike, like, are you going to, all you gotta do is put up a little bit of a fight. It just seems like he keeps rolling over and showing his belly. But VD, what were you thinking when you were listening to that?
Yeah, I mean, I love an angry Kirk. It's probably my favorite Kirk. But as soon as I saw that Mike was gonna be having JDM, as soon as I saw he was gonna be having him on the show, I had like red flags going up.
You called it, man.
I was like, this is not gonna go well for Mike. And also, I didn't think the interview was terrible. Like Ziggy said, like Mike sounded more stupid than he usually does. He didn't sound great, but the issues I had with it is kind of what Kirk said too, is that it was so obviously like this JDM guy, he got a little Minifan bump, he likes the engagement on Twitter, and there was nothing good that was ever going to come out of that. He's clearly chasing clout to me, which I don't know, Mike didn't really press him on at all. You saw on Twitter, he's talking about, I'm going to write a parody song by Monday, and I'm going to listen to all these episodes on the plane. And then I saw later on Twitter, someone asked him, was like, hey, what'd you think of the episodes? And he's like, some stuff came up, And even when he was criticizing, the Minifans, he's like, I saw what you did to Ellie and Nate and stuff. And then he right thereafter says he didn't even listen to the Nate episode. So I don't think Mike necessarily has to be an attack dog to kind of just jump on him for those little inconsistencies. And I think Mike probably was afraid, given the racial aspect of the conversation, but then also, Mike has said a couple times on the show, he gets nervous now, even when he's tweeting something, just because of the Barstool relationship's a little rocky, especially for him. But I thought Mike had a pretty unique vantage point to talk in that moment, because he's someone who's been publicly humiliated by Portnoy, probably more than anyone else at Barstool.
Absolutely.
And he's not black, but he is blind. Like he has a disability. He's had like a wallet thrown at his face and published to millions of people. He's been humiliated time and time again by Portnoy. So I think he could have stood up a little bit there and been like, and he did a little bit, but he didn't really do enough of it, where he's like, I literally get shit on by Portnoy. He hates me. He wishes I didn't work here, but I still like the guy and I still get where he's coming from. It's all, we're all on the same team at the end of the day.
Right. I don't understand how he can take a dive so quickly with Kirk, and then he's also not putting up a fight with this marketing guy. This guy who does basically all he does is probably a couple Twitter handles for Barstool. So he's not well spoken at all, and he admits that. And that's a perfect opportunity for Mike, when Kirk's not there, to jump all over the guy and correct him on something.
I think Mike becomes such a pussy when Kirk's not in the room or on his side. Like, you can see sometimes when Kirk is jumping down Steve's throat, like when they were talking about, would you sing the lyrics in your house privately? And you see Mike, like the ferocious Mike, come out there when Kirk's yelling at him too. And like, he gets a little bit more aggressive, but then the instant that's not there, he kind of loses his way.
Yeah, he's not the attack dog that Ziggy is.
No, he's definitely not. I don't blame Mike, like I said, for not picking up on JDM kind of skirting the truth, saying that Kirk apologized. But if he comes to that interview prepared with the tweets in his hand to say, okay, I literally have the tweets that you tweeted out with the DMs with Kirk, no mention of an apology.
Right.
I think it's the lack of preparation that gets Mike time and time again. It's just another example. But one point, BD, you talked about JDM being a clout chaser. I don't know if he's a clout chaser. He actually may be a long-time secret Minifan, because if you notice, he used that Andy Mayo reciprocity principle to get on our good side so that we get on his good side. I've seen it once, I've seen it 1,000 times. So
you might be spot on there.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, it definitely works. So maybe that's what he used to his advantage.
But I thought even some of his language, JDM, in that interview was like, that's where I did kind of think Mike was maybe not disloyal, but not representing the show or Minifans well. Like, I remember at one point Josh was saying, like, I'm willing to listen to the show and I'm all this stuff. It's like, it was kind of patronizing. Like, we're not begging anybody to listen to the show just because you work at Barstool, like, it really doesn't matter. And I thought Mike could have got on him a little bit for that. Like, but I think he did. He's a good snake. He disarmed Mike, with the racial stuff. And then also saying like, I'm not eloquent. I'm not well spoken, which I don't think he was particularly terrible. And then he can kind of use that little wiggle room to, maybe I'll just misrepresent some stuff, but, I'm not eloquent, that's just how it goes. And I think Ziggy's right. Mike should have been probably a little more prepped. I mean, that's like the Kirk Steve, recipe is you come prepped and you ask for examples. And then if someone says something that's not true, you call them on it.
Right. Yeah. And Mike is unfortunately not prepared. If he just has those DMs ready to go, he can call him out easily. He's got that, where Kirk always is the most prepared guy on the show. So he is armed and ready to go. He has that ammo. You know, he's out for a run in the morning, practicing this stuff, ready to have an argument with anybody at any time. And he's got that counterpoint. That's just not who Mike is. And I think in my DMs, one of you said, well, what did you expect? And I was like, I know I have this expectation where I wish, Mike would be able to rise to that moment and kick some ass. But it just wasn't there. And it just bums me out to hear it when he's just kind of settles in an argument and kind of gets passive aggressive and just kind of like purposefully is sarcastic, even when Kirk is calling him out for his disloyalty to the fans. You know, he said he's going to resign in disgrace. He's just kind of, I just wish he would push back on Kirk. And I think Kirk wishes the same thing, so it's just
Red,
Yeah.
I have our DMs in front of us. In front of me, neither of us said that. So,
Are you sure?
Putting you in your
Misrepresenting
place.
DMs. Come on.
Yeah, we definitely didn't say that.
I feel like you called me out on that, Ziggy. When you were just like, well, what did you expect, Red? What did you think was going to happen? I was like,
Right.
I know, but I wish
Right,
you
it was
would.
a joke. It was a joke. Calm down. Calm down.
God damn.
No, I like that's the reason, I don't feel bad for Mike. It creeps in every now and then, but as soon as he plays the, woe is Mike, like, oh, I'm not talented. What do you expect? Like, that's where I'm just like, oh, fucking, get rid of that shit. Like,
Right.
He has to get rid of that habit. And I'm sure it's hard, but he has no reason not to have, more confidence in a Barstool social media guy who's, never done a content appearance. Like Mike, he's on a huge podcast every day. He hosts like 19 of his own shows, even if they only are around for 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, if they're one or done, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
but still, he should he has to have a little bit more self-worth, and I think he needs to get back to that therapist of his.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would never put someone down for having lack of self-worth. I mean, I'm on here with an image of a dog instead of my face, so I understand that. But
Sure.
I think hot take here. I don't think Mike considers himself as a Minifan anymore. I mean, he rarely interacts with the Minifans on Twitter. He'll tweet. He tweets throughout the day, but a lot of times it's him making a point instead of responding to people. I mean, obviously, I get the blind thing. I'm not trying to downplay that, but he's not really responding to people. The craziest Minifans, like, we're on Twitter all day. We're watching YouTube. We're watching Menners get neutered on YouTube.
Right.
We're listening to DEC's show. The awkward ad reads, everything. It sometimes seems like Mike doesn't get into that. Like, he's not consuming every little piece of Minifan content. And I don't know if that's a lack of confidence. I mean, obviously he cares. I'm not trying to say he doesn't care about the show, but he doesn't. It's more of like the Minifans are them versus us. I mean, I wrote down a quote that he had in the interview with JDM where he said, the Minifans, they are a passionate bunch, not we are a passionate bunch.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That I hear that a lot from him, the they instead of we, like us Minifans.
That is something I noticed over the break, listening back to a lot of old shows, is like Mike early on, he really was a huge buffer between the Minifans and Kirk, and like, keeping them up on what's going on, and kind of he has a big role in the kind of the foundation of the world, in the sense that he was kind of the communicator to Kirk in a lot of ways, I think. And I think that has fallen off. Although I do like every now and then, like once a month, when Mike has a very salient point on Twitter and makes a good tweet. He had a couple of those over the break, and I think maybe that affected his prep work for the Josh interview.
Yeah, and that's always good when he does that, and then instantly the comments are, "Who stole Mike's phone? Who did this? What happened?"
Yeah.
I mean, did you catch today that he remembered the first time Kirk retweeted him? So
yes,
you talk about a cloud chaser going for the retweets and the likes.
Yeah,
I like you, Mike.
Steve
That's how you know
interrupts
he's
him
a
right
Minifan.
away in that point too, where Steve interrupts him like Mike was ready to get to that retweet. He wanted to talk about it.
Oh, no one's like, someone said this on Twitter in the DMs, but no one likes, reading one of their tweets on the air more than Mike. Like, if he has a tweet with a little bit of traction, you better believe it's going to squeeze its way into the next episode.
Sort of a tough point. And they did lose $30 million. They cost them $40 million to get AAF and $10 million to sell it. So I'd say it's to bring Greg Hill over to get basically a 3 rating at EEI and a 3 rating from AAF. So basically all to get rid of me. The whole thing, and people think I always make it about me, and I don't mean to make it about me today. I know everyone's kneeling and feeling bad right now. We're going to hand out the body of Dale here in a few minutes, which should be able to feed you for the next 80 years. I think we're just cut a bunch of it and bring it home to people. But this was all done because, again, if Bob Murchison's dad had finished on his mom's stomach, unfortunately, I'd be doing a terrible fucking boring show with Jerry fighting with the national anthem, so maybe it's a good thing. But, this is all because of that. And I think we lost $10 million because of Murchison. Think of the money they've lost since 4 or 5 times that. All because they were afraid to tell this guy, fuck, if I may, in the house of God, fuck off. Fuck off. I'm now gone. Jerry's now gone. And the station is now in the toilet forever, permanently. And I suppose they'll continue to exist, but they're dead. I mean, we're going to bury the body here today. We'll go across the street and Steve will bury it as he always does.
Yes.
But we didn't bring a knife today, which is strange. But this is what happens. It's a cautionary tale. And I tell this to my friends at Barstool as well, in light of recent events. Listen, that's fine. Have conversations, swell. Don't give in. Don't turn your back on what you are. And most important, as Mike Geary learned after yesterday, don't turn your back on your audience. Absolutely. They matter most. First and foremost. And I drag a legion of fans all over the place. You couldn't get 4 people from EEI to go follow or listen or do anything. I'm going to have these people, shit-faced, passing coronavirus around in soccer in a few weeks. Right, Steve?
Yes, except for the coronavirus.
Sure. No, of course. That's all done in jest.
Of course. Take the proper precaution.
Yes. Selling out places in 2 minutes. Greatest fan base of all time. That's the real lesson. Not me. Sure, I'm a once-in-a-generation talent. Fine. It's a once-in-a-generation fan base. The greatest fans of all time. You people right now are home in your dresses and your tuxedos and your suits. Mourning what was. Entercom, David Field told you people, fuck off. Fuck you. Go away.
It's nice to know they went peacefully, though.
They did go
peacefully. Because over the last year, they haven't had to deal with a lot of the headaches they were dealing with and things like that. So that's
true.
It was an easier way to go.
It's true. And radio.com rolls on, to be fair.
Yes.
And they're tremendous, and we love them.
Absolutely.
But they told you guys watching right now on YouTube. Are they watching, Steve, on YouTube?
They are watching.
Are they loaded up, Steve?
They are loaded up.
Good.
Yes.
They told these people, and by the way, one second, DC is here right now. He's trying to, the wine is for adults, DC. That's part of the whole, really. Jesus.
Church has some different rules.
We're trying now to, oh my God, DC. That is not even arguable, the age there. What are we doing here? Jesus.
You should see her paperwork. She swears she's 18.
Jesus. So she even speak.
She does look young.
She's a binky.
Well, that's
a diaper, I see.
More of a sexual thing.
Oh, that's true. Good point. Point being, the greatest fan base of all time was told to hit the bricks. And if any of you people still listen to that thing in any way, shape, or form, you're fucking crazy. That's on you. But that's not about that. We say goodbye. A 30-year run ended yesterday. Goodbye, Dale Arnold. Goodbye, my friend Glenn Ordway. Christian Fourier, Lou Maloney, you said me being at the station was the worst thing that ever happened to the station. Well said, Lou. As always, well said. Goodbye to all the people in the past. Ted Sarandis and whoever you want. Name them. Joe Castiglione and all these fine people. They've all lived lives, not good, but they've all lived lives, and now they're gone. And we'll stuff them in the casket and say goodbye to this cancer forever. Goodbye, EI, for a life lived, not well lived, but a life lived. And Joe Zarbano, there's a special place in hell for you, you rotten fucking asshole.
Amen.
Okay, so we're coming back with that funeral sound. I loved everything about it today, especially as an EEI listener. The only thing I probably didn't like was at the end, the Carano song really scared the shit out of me. It was great production, but it scared the shit out of me to hear Carano singing like that. So
he's a dark man.
He's a dark man, no disrespect. But I loved everything about it, especially him just going down the line of just trashing Dale Arnold and Joe Zambrano. It was great. So what were you thinking, Visionless Dave, when you're listening to that today?
First of all, like the YouTube visual, as soon as I saw that was up this morning, like I saw the opening screen and I just knew like, oh, this is going to be great. I said earlier, I think my favorite Kirk is Angry Kirk, but I'm going to rescind that statement. I think it's actually Grave Dancing Kirk, because there's just nothing more enjoyable, especially when it comes to WEEI. And there's something as like concrete as ratings where people, they still try to find a way to like kind of weasel out of it, but it's pretty mathematical, like public information. You can't really hide from it. So I'm not a original EEI guy, so I'll let Zig talk about it a little more. But I mean, it was great watching Kirk just kind of go through it and just kind of rip these guys up.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Zig.
The funeral was awesome. As far as yesterday, I mean, the periscopes are always great. I'll be honest, my heart wasn't 100% in the hashtag cancel WEI movement.
Yes.
Maybe I'm soft. I probably am soft. I'm definitely soft. But I do feel bad kicking people when they're down a little bit. So I kind of naturally think of the little guys like the Mutt and the Kens. And I have a couple personal connections to EEI, so it's like I think of those people. But anyway, shame on me for not being excited for the show because Kirk, again, came out with a bang. Wasn't just the classic EEI bashing. It was like the whole production quality through the roof. You got the suits, the music, the somber voices, the candles. I was thinking today, I don't know where you buy those Catholic candles, but the thought of Steve like bounding out of a Hispanic Jamaica Plain grocery store with like a bunch of candles in his arms was just making me crack up. Yeah, it was great. Like VD said, the grave dancing is always great, even though I'm a little bit of a softie, but it had to happen.
I'm with you on that. Like I love Grudge. I love Grudge Dave. I love Grudge Kirk. I love dancing on the graves of everybody at EEI. But then you do think about, like you said, the Mutts, who I love Mutt. He still interacts with a lot of us on Twitter. So you're thinking about them too, because you know that they're all going to get canned. And it is too bad for some of them, but just the cowardice and the poor leadership and, just the little things like Rich Keefe just being a fucking asshole to Mike for no reason at the casino. So those little things like that where you can just dance on them and have some fun with it. And they don't have any fun with it at all. Like I did checking them all day on Twitter. No mention of anything other than Joey Z calling Kirk, which was odd. There was nothing. And I don't know how you have the last 2 days of those ratings of everything that we're doing on Twitter and they don't address it at all is amazing. I don't know how they have that, because I'd be so pissed if I'm them. I'd have to do something, but they just don't want the backlash of Kirk coming after them even more so, and the Minifans too. So I loved it. I love, like you said, the production of it. It's the image of Steve running to his Honda Fit with the candles and the flowers. Probably speaking some Spanish in there, trying to show off.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
It's that vision of Steve doing that is hilarious. So it was awesome.
I loved. Go ahead, Zig.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask. So I mentioned that I think of the little people, Mutt and Ken, and feel kind of bad. Kirk obviously feels no remorse for Ken. He's multiple times said his favorite moment from EI is Laird's dad's funeral. So, or he hated the funeral. He liked that his dad died.
Right.
I know that Kirk on the way out and when he was on Enough About Me, radio.com, in the beginning of Kirk Minahan show was saying Ken was a coward and he was afraid to take the chance. He had a kid at home. And I remember Kirk saying, I understand that he's got a kid. He's worried about the unknown. But now the tune is Ken Laird is a snake and he stabbed me in the back. Do you know where Red that kind of came? Like, is there something I'm missing, or is there something behind the scenes Kirk's just not talking about with the stabbing in the back?
Yeah, so it's Kirk. I remember Kirk saying that in the beginning, and then it turned into the snake thing, and Jerry joined in on it with him when he had Jerry in on the show for the first time. Yeah. And the best way I can gather it is just when Ken, I guess, made a reference to Kirk's mental health, and that's why he couldn't make the transition, because he wasn't mentally stable and didn't trust him to do that. I think that's probably where that came in. But then also, too, you factor in how him and Curtis were just yucking it up, and totally changed their tune when they went with Greg Hill, and just how they did radio just seemed totally different than what they were with Kirk and Callahan. And Ken was always, that sock puppet for Kirk, as Jerry would call him. So it seemed like of all of them, Ken was his right-hand man, similar to what Steve is now. So I guess he takes that disloyalty the hardest, which is why
I get that. I just didn't know if there was something like tangible.
What made it pop up in that episode? I don't know. I did see a tweet. This might be totally unrelated, but it was like, I think Fitzy tweeted, that people are thinking of watching baseball games at drive-in movie theaters. And I think Fitzy tweeted like, "What a stupid idea," and like was quoting Ken. So I don't know if maybe like he saw that as like a subtle shot. I mean, that might be completely unrelated, but
yeah, I didn't see that. I'm sure that if Kirk saw it,
yeah,
it wasn't
I think
funny.
that's probably what brought it to the forefront.
I mean,
but
he has been calling him a snake for a bit now.
yeah. Well, I think he probably feels vindicated in the sense that I think when he left WEI and radio.com, he kind of was trying to explain to anyone that would listen, like, I'm going to build this world, I'm going to do this podcast. And I don't think there was a huge reception for it. I don't think people thought it would be as successful as it's been. So I think he's kind of rubbing it in, being like, look, I told you I would do this. And he probably, feels a little bit betrayed that no one wanted to kind of take that journey with him. But I think that's also why he loves Steve so much, because Steve, is the one that took that leap with him and left a good job and kind of risk. I mean, it wasn't a huge risk, but it was a new venture, which is always a little risky. And, they started really from kind of ground zero and kind of built up what I think Kirk had been trying to mastermind for a while.
Right. Yeah. So, and with that said, like, so with Steve and everything, Kirk making that transition, when they're coming back with this Barstool relationship, coming off of those 2 weeks, I know you guys have experience listening with WEI, Ziggy, but also too, I feel like you guys are kind of tapped in more so than some of the other Minifans when it comes to Barstool. So as you guys are watching it over the 2 weeks and now coming into Monday, Ziggy, when it comes to Monday and listening back to everything with Steve and with Kirk and Barstool, and now them defending Barstool and seeing what's going on with Portnoy. What were you thinking as far as like over the 2 weeks, but also the relationship now and where it stands maybe for the future too with Barstool?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the last show or the second to last show before the official break. That was the show where Kirk said, if anyone at Barstool wants to talk to me, they need to talk to my lawyer or Steve. And then Big Cat called and Kirk said no. So going into the break, like that's where it was at. I was like, okay, there's no chance of going back. And then I know there were conversations behind the scenes with Kirk and Erica, with Steve. And it seemed like there were some fences mended. And then the subscription server or the mailing list, I mean, that had some good content put out. But so I think I would say the state of the Barstool Union right now is decent. Like it's definitely better than 2.5 weeks ago. And then if you recall, Kirk said, June was the best month for the show in terms of downloads and in terms of social media interactions. And then I think he said in terms of like advertising. And that's, I don't know if that's on a per episode basis, but that's without a week of shows. Right. So, and I don't know, maybe that's Barstool listeners coming in to hear Barstool drama because Barstool is drama. Right?
It's like directly related to, I mean, they did 3 days of the rundown where they're just talking about Kirk. Like that had to have been a big factor for it, I would think.
Right. And I was looking at, I was watching some of the videos that I'm assuming DJK put out with the like Barstool on the headline, and they have good numbers. And if you read the comments, it's a lot of people saying like, Kirk is the only one left at Barstool speaking this, or say like speaking truth. And maybe those are Minifans, but I'm sure there's stoolies that are listening to the podcast for the first time because of the drama, and they want to stay because why wouldn't they want to stay?
Right. I was just gonna say,
I mean, that's why, like, I've always been an advocate for stay until you have everything lined up, build the audience, and then take that audience and get out of there when you have like all the ducks in a row.
Right. Like I would still be doing Sirius for that same reason. Like I think it's their best shows that they've done on those Wednesdays. Just keep building the audience, keep building it, and then when you need to go, when it is time to go, then you're ready to go. But over those 2 weeks, it terrified me because nothing against Kirk or anything. I know he'll be successful, but when Steve Robinson is your brain trust to have a newsletter and a subscription service, it's a terrifying proposition for me. But VD, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think going into break, it definitely got dicey for a second there. And like at first I was going into it like, oh, there's no way they're going to leave. This is all going to, blow over and they're just fighting. But then kind of what Ziggy said when he was dropping the lawyer comments and hung up on Big Cat, I was like, okay, this is getting real. Right. And obviously I definitely understood where Kirk was coming from, and I was ready to subscribe at the drop of a hat. But I think the advantages of Barstool, like, they don't even need to be. There's no arguing that it's like one of the most powerful promotion platforms on the internet. Like, they're massive. Their audience like has the kind of person that's a stoolie, like, they tend to have a good overlap with a Minifan. Like, we're definitely a unique breed, but and like you guys were saying, anytime Kirk's on the rundown or something, I think that is like a red pill moment for a lot of stoolies who are like, wait, who the fuck is this guy? Because that's kind of how I became aware of Kirk. Like, over the years before Kirk was working at Barstool, they would, cross over with him at the Super Bowl or kind of talk about WEI stuff. So I was aware of Kirk, but it wasn't until, and I forget what even the exact rant was, but it wasn't until I kind of had that crossover moment and I was like, holy shit, this guy is amazing. And like Ziggy said, once you start listening to the podcast, I think pretty quickly whether you're going to be in or out. So I think I want them to stay at Barstool. I think the subscription is, inevitable, but there's definitely no reason to rush it. I think on paper, a subscription service sounds a lot easier than it is to pull off.
Right.
Obviously, I think Kirk could do it, and he always asks, like, why do we want more people listening to the show? I think just the scale of everything gets bigger, like the world gets bigger, the events get more frequent.
Yeah.
It allows them to, it's easy to forget that we're about to do a Broadway show basically at the Wilbur. And I think, once that finally happens, and I think the live event space will be huge for them. But, and another thing is, even through all the fighting with Barstool, Kirk will always say he really likes Dave. He respects Erica. Like, he's never, even when his split does come from Barstool, I think it will be amicable, even if there is a little tension. But I think Barstool and Kirk were kind of in this weird standoff moment where, Barstool's like, well, we don't need you. And Kirk is like, well, we definitely don't need you either. But then once that settles and cooler heads prevail, I think Dave and Kirk really do like each other. I mean, even when Dave said he, fired Kirk and then just called him right back and was like, oh, what are we doing here? I think they're cut from the same cloth. And
absolutely.
I think Dave understands Kirk probably better than any other content person that he's ever encountered, especially as a boss. So it feels like a good home. I'm not angry at Barstool. It feels like things have kind of played out in that sense. Even you hear Steve and Kirk sneaking in the presented by Barstool Sports, on the podcast a couple times. So it feels like, cooler heads have prevailed. Once again, there's a real enemy attacking from the outside, and Kirk definitely has Dave's back, and I think it goes both ways.
Absolutely. I think when the things that I love when they were talking about, what's the upside? Why do you want this bigger? With them being with Barstool and the amount of money that Barstool is about to make once we do have professional sports come back, and they are legally gambling on these things, and that money starts rolling in for Barstool, and they have the sports book. I think it's going to be huge for them money wise, but then also just insulates and protects. And pretty soon when Kirk gets into that next scuffle, legally with somebody, he's got the Barstool lawyers with him again. He's got the money from them backing him as an employee, and you get the Barstool guys on the show. Having Big Cat being able to call in, and eventually I'm assuming they should have KFC on tomorrow if KFC will do it, to talk to the cancel culture stuff. Just having them on the show is huge, and you won't get that when they go subscription service because Portnoy won't allow it, and I wouldn't blame him. So you wouldn't get those things by not having Barstool with them and not having them at Barstool.
Yeah, I got two things real quick.
Go
so
ahead,
Visionless Dave, you said you don't remember the exact content, but you remember like the first time you listened to Kirk and had that come to Jesus moment. I think like all Minifans have that moment where they first heard him and we're like, this is totally different than what I would like. This is not Mustard and Johnson on Saturday. This is Dale Keefe, Dale Arnold and Kirk Minahan, this guy that's like just going crazy. And I mean, I listened back to some of those Saturday shows recently with Kirk and Dale, and even then, I mean, they're talking fourth line, but it's like,
right.
Which is, I highly recommend any newer fans to go back. But I will say, as far as Kirk's point about not caring about the size of the audience, just to echo what you said, VD, like, yes, the audience can be what it is now, and it's still going to be a great community. It's going to be a great podcast, but the more growth you have, the more revenue you bring in. You can get a new camera on Steve. Steve said, okay, why don't we have a camera on me? Because it's like $3,000.
Yeah.
You could get a better board op. You could get better drops. You could get better phone system to have someone screen the calls.
Absolutely.
There's just so many little things. Like if I buy a shirt and they send me the wrong shirt and I need to return that, I shouldn't have to be going to Steve Robinson to return it when he's doing all these other things. Like being at Barstool allows for those resources, and then staying at Barstool allows for more fans so that when you do leave, you have the capacity to bring in more resources to help. I mean, Pat McAfee, I don't know if you saw that video where he was handing out $50,000 to his team. He's got like a dozen guys, maybe 8 guys on staff. I mean, I don't know what all their roles are. I've never listened to it, but I think you need more people on staff to grow. I mean, to really like soar in subscription service. The content would be great,
absolutely.
but I just think it could be like exponentially great the more audience obviously the more revenue.
I totally agree. And
Absolutely.
even like Erica, before she was at Barstool, she was working at a company called like Follow, which was all about subscription-based content for like Justin Bieber level megastars, and it failed. And I think like the subscription model, there's a way lower conversion rate than people would really ever expect. And so I don't think even if the world never grew anymore, like you said, the podcast would still be great. It would be just as good as it is now. And I don't think it would ever get stale, but like just having that opportunity for growth with more events. And I don't know, it's just like you said, about the cameras too. I don't know why the show, they don't release the full video. I would love to watch kind of the simulcast. Especially, I DM'd DGK on Twitter today and was like, you got to post the audio or the video of Mike just getting ragdolled by Kirk. Like, I really want to see that. And he was a little sassy with me, so I'm putting DGK on warning. But
did you tell him how to tweet, VD? Did you tell him how to tweet?
Yeah.
You know,
No, Ziggy took care of that. Ziggy took care of that.
Okay.
No, but
Put him in place.
yeah, I think it's like Ziggy said, like having more video, more camera, like, you know, if they have more capital, they're able to send Mike, you know, like let's send Mike to the fucking North Pole or something, things like that. I think it makes, and also I wanted to touch on even today, like the more visual content they do, every time they do something kind of out of the box, whether it's like, you know, the Cullen episode wasn't visual, but it kind of has similarities today to the funeral. And I don't think Kirk realizes like how golden some of those visual moments are, like with the candles and everything. So yeah, just more money means more of that, I think.
I will say, just to cut you off, because I don't want you to get in trouble, I think Kirk does realize it. You said he doesn't realize it.
Yes.
Good call.
So we can dump on Mike, but not Kirk. So
I do think Kirk is like, he even says like, oh, I don't care about merch. I don't care about video. Like, I don't think it's his place to care about that stuff. That's kind of where Steve and Mike step in. So I don't know. I think, yeah.
That's a good save, Ziggy.
Yeah,
that's a good teammate. Kick, save, and a butte right there. Nice job.
We'll cut that.
All right. So after show, the reason why I really wanted to have you guys on is knowing that Menners and DEC were going to be on last night. You guys are 2 very good callers into the Menners madness, the Menners Live, whatever the hell he's calling it. So were you guys watching last night? I know that you guys called in. VD, I think I heard your call. What were you thinking last night? Like, here's I'm gonna kick it to you, but I was so underwhelmed by not even Menners. I love messing with Menners and calling him old
that's a great
Menners
name
and
for
new
a show,
Menners.
by the way.
Yeah.
Messing with Menners.
Messing with Menners.
I love messing with him. I felt bad in a way because DEC was such a drip last night. He was purposefully not doing anything. Like, he just came on there like a slug and would not react to anything. I don't even know why he was there. So I got mad because of that, because DEC was purposely being bad and he was just a total drip. But VD, what were you thinking last night?
Well, yeah, I think it was an example of poor programming again by Menners having him on. He said he's like, oh, a couple days earlier and I would have been screaming at you. Like, nobody wants to hear you have someone on who you were mad at, but you're actually not mad at now. It would be like if Kirk had K Marco on and he was like, man, I was calling him on the phone. I was cussing at him, but I kind of calmed down about it now. And, he's not so bad. And so I kind of understand why DEC wasn't giving him much. I think he was doing that, maybe hoping that Menners would kind of, explode, which he did by kicking him out, but not in a very entertaining way. He took his ball and went home. So it's classic Menners. I'm worried about the guy.
I'm so worried. I'm worried about my friend.
I am. It seems like ever since Steve kind of, resoundingly won that war, he hasn't been the same. And I don't know if he's delusional when he says he doesn't see it, but I think deep down he knows. So
yeah, you can see it in his eyes. He knows.
Yeah, you can see it in his eyes. You can, he doesn't
He
have
looked tired last night, didn't he? He looked tired. He looked tired,
defeated. I really think he might have a testosterone level problem. I was dead serious with that. I've seen
the low T was a great
low T. I mean, a little bit of extra T might change his life, but I am worried about the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he had, like you said, DC. I wrote on my little notepad, DC slug. I mean, it was great slug defense method. You can't blame DC for that because Menner said, "I'm not as mad at DC because we already hashed it out in the DMs 2 days ago." The old Menners used to really be like a down under version of Kirk, or Kirk light, obviously, homeless Kirk, whatever you want to call it. What does Kirk always say? Bring it to the show.
Right.
So Menners, save it for the main show. The main show.
Main show. That's what I don't understand is last week. So he got mad at me. He DMs me 2 days before the show. He wants me on the show. Great. I don't talk to him at all. I just hop in. Nick lets me in, and we're there for 10 minutes, and we're just yelling at each other. It was great. It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was exactly what you needed. And then he had a great show. Like he's going back and forth with the callers. This one was like, I don't know, it was like a slap and tickle. Two 50-year-old diabetic men who are just sitting there and they're not doing anything. There's just it was terrible to watch. I felt bad.
DC's been taking CBD oil, so I don't think he's diabetic. He's on the up and up now.
Okay, all right. So maybe he's not diabetic. He certainly had a low sugar, but I don't know. It was just
so DC. One thing he did say that kind of caught my attention was, so Menners asked him why he hates the incels and the newer fans, and DC said there are people in the world who irritate me regardless of if they're new or not. They have hidden agendas. So I kind of wish DC named names. Obviously, one, he's talking about you, Red, because we know he hates you. I don't know. Is he talking about TJ Hubbard and his card collecting business he's trying to start up? I don't know. I'm just curious who the hidden agendas. Who has those hidden agendas that DC?
It certainly has to be TJ Hubbard. I think there's a lot of clout chasing going on with his tops, 89 packs that he's ripping open as the rainstorm was going down the other night on his Periscope. Yeah, I wish DEC would get into that stuff because I know he doesn't like me. I've seen it in the DMs, and he is, he's happy to go after somebody in the DMs and then completely step over the line. Whether it's doxing or anything else, he'll say some aggressive stuff and then he'll immediately backtrack, apologize, but the damage is already done. It's just what he does.
Are we talking about Red or DC?
We're talking about DEC. We're talking about DEC.
Swinging chair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So that's exactly what he did the other day with Menners. He does that tweet knowing what that's going to do.
I love that. I love that.
It was a perfect move.
I
was DMing Menners right away, like hyping him up. Like, you're going to let DEC do this to you? Like, you're going to let him do this to you? Come on, you can't let him do this. And then he starts getting himself revved up. And then I don't know what happened, but it just cooled out by the time that he got the DEC finally on the show. So I love the show. I think it's great to watch, not only to see you guys as callers, but then also on Twitter. Guys are doing old Menners, new Menners. Blind Prison Mike is getting into it. Fez is getting into
Sheldon.
it. Oh, Sheldon's getting, it's great. Like, he's such a lightning rod for the Minifans. They love giving him shit. This one felt real. Like, he's unfollowed me now. It feels very real with Menners, and I don't know why. Like, we're obviously just busting balls with him. I don't know why he's taking it so
if you could have played the show he did last night to the old Menners a couple months ago, he would have been disgusted with.
He would have called him a total drip.
And then he kind of I don't know. I just hope he gets some fight back in him. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Himmy today. Old Menners is like Mike and the Mad Dog. New Menners is Mike's on Francesa. People are only watching to make fun of him, and I
Yeah.
don't know. It's sad. It's sad existence for
So
new miners.
the other note I made for the after show was, today Mike announced the coming of another Mike show, yet to be titled. I sent him some titles today for the Cheers show. We'll see how long the Cheers show goes with Quantum Week Chris. I've got high hopes. I'm a big Cheers fan. I'm a gearhead, so I'm hoping it works out well. How excited are you, Ziggy, for the new Cheers show with Blind Mike and Quantum Week Chris?
So I know that's a joke question. I'm not even going to give you a joke answer.
What?
I would follow along because I like Cheers. However, it's kind of bearing the lead. I do have a bold prediction because,
Yes.
and it relates. So when they talked about it on the show, Kirk said, "Oh, it's nice to see that you're putting time into YouTube shows and not into the actual show," which is something he's brought up like a lot recently. Like and when Kirk brings up
That
something a
had to
lot,
cut
it kind of hits
deep.
on the head. My bold prediction, I don't know, maybe I should save it for the next show, but what do you think? Should I save it?
No. Go.
I
go.
won't do it.
You think
No.
there will be 0 episodes?
No, Mike will not be back on the show when Kirk comes back from his August vacation.
He won't be back.
Ooh.
He will not be back. Yeah.
Wow.
I just think there's enough. I think Kirk is down on him. He's overall liked him on the show for the most part, and that's the most important thing. But we hammered Mike in the beginning, but the lack of initiative or preparation that outside of the 2.5 hours of recording, unless it's just totally behind the scenes that we don't see, it doesn't seem like there's much there. And you can just tell from the little comments Kirk makes, and occasionally Steve will make too, that it's getting to him. And if you're going subscription service, you need all hands on deck. You need people wearing multiple hats.
Yes.
And that just seems, I don't know. I like Mike on the show, and I've always said that's the most important thing. He makes Kirk laugh. More importantly, he makes me laugh. But
Yes.
I don't know if he's carrying Fat Joke all that weight. So I don't know. I should have started the show with that, but
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I don't know. I think listening back to old episodes during the break too, like pre-contract Mike was a different Mike. I even listened to the episode where he talks to Erica, and if you go down the checklist of what he said he'd be doing for the show, I don't think he does a single thing that he said. Like he said he'd be doing merch, running the social media, researching stories, stuff like that. And I don't know. I love Mike too. I'm a huge gearhead. I think he has a role in the show, but I do cringe every time they'll be like, "Oh, did you see this on Twitter? Or did you see this story?" And if Mike is like, "Oh, I haven't seen it," like I don't know. I get that secondhand like cringe, like, God, that's your boss, man. Like you got to be doing some prep work. So I think before Kirk got rid of him, he would give him a kind of a big wake up call. Maybe that's gone on behind the scenes, but I think it is the difference of like being an hourly guy who's on, maybe once or twice a week and gets paid, just for showing up and doing the podcast versus being a salary guy and like really carrying your weight, doing some outside the box stuff. And I don't know, he can't seem to grasp that starting a new YouTube show every month just isn't the answer. It's just not it.
No, and I loved doing Must See with him. I thought, John and I had a good time doing it, and I thought it was a good vehicle to give him confidence to get ready for the show, and it helped. I think we would DM about show prep and those different things. I thought it was really good for him to do that. I hope that this Cheers show is another way for him to get reps and to gain confidence, because I know that's, and he would even admit that's his downfall, is his confidence.
Even with some of his drop the mic shows, you can see like the prep work he does because he's seen all the specials and he knows the world, and he does have a little bit more confidence when he's talking about that stuff. I don't know why he can't carry that over to the other part of the show.
Something about when Kirk is in the room, man, he just tightens up and he can't, he'll talk when he's spoken to, but that's it.
And I get that because, Kirk obviously has a presence, and even every time I call, like, I feel like my stomach is going to come out of my throat. But you would think a guy that's been there for like a year now, like a little bit of that would kind of, start to wear away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he's actually pretty, like, he's best on the show. That's his best quality, which again is most important. And his second most important is be a punching bag, which I think he is a good punching bag.
Yeah.
For me, it's the stuff outside of the show, which if they're looking to move on from Barstool, they need people wearing multiple hats.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just puts more on Steve. And then, that's just hard for him to carry. As much as I hate Steve, like, that's just not fair. It's not a fair ask, and nobody hates Steve more than me. So,
definitely not the new Menners.
No, definitely no. New Menners love Steve. New Menners is very timid to criticize Steve, which I've seen and have video of, and I don't want to put that out there, Menners. So we'll just leave that alone. You're my good friend. I won't do that. Anything else, boys, before we get out of here? This is 45 minutes. I feel like it's been like 10 minutes. This has been awesome. What else?
Real quick,
Yes.
Chrono, good week. Great week for Chrono. He's on a heater. Absolutely.
Oh, he is on a heater.
Dave is the loneliest person that was a good one. And then obviously the funeral song was top-notch production quality.
It was top-notch production. Again, scary as hell. Top-notch production.
Very dark, but
Very
could be dark
dark.
in the closet, I guess.
The loneliest person at Barstool, that line where he talked about Liz Gonzalez and being a double minority, I was dying when I heard that. Chrono is still not better than the Steve's a Liar guy, but he's close, man.
A lot of people taking
quantity
shots
over
at
quality.
Steve the Liar guy on Twitter. Not necessarily taking shots, but saying, is Carano the new number one? Is he coming?
He's
for
on
the
his
crown?
heels,
So
man.
I think Steve the Liar guy will probably come back with some fire pretty soon.
I hope so. Otherwise, Carano's going to pass him by, and I'd hate to see it. I really would. All right, guys. Thank you. Hopefully, so this will be coming out Friday night. It'll be dropping, and then it'll be a podcast on Saturday with KMS Rewind, and John from Scranton is killing it with that. Hopefully, have you guys back on. The reason why you guys do not have a video out there is because nobody loves the docs Minifans more than Minifans. So I'm happy to have you guys with a beautiful.
That wasn't the reason.
What? That wasn't the reason?
No, yeah. Do you remember when Ned Snark made his YouTube debut?
Oh, yes, that's right.
And
Yeah.
all everyone talked about was how good looking he was, and
That's true.
no one listened to what he said.
Yeah.
I was just worried of that happening. So.
Too good looking for the camera. I think it would be.
Great with mustache, man. Like, I don't know what the hell are you supposed to do when he looks good with a mustache.
Yeah, you can't compete.
Yeah, so I'm disappointed he's going to be at Saco. I'm going to avoid him as much as possible. So I don't look terrible. So thank you guys. Rundown out. Appreciate it.
Peace.
It might have been Facebook where they were like, these
Oh, yes.
companies,
No, it is.
these
It's
companies,
Facebook.
and they wrote like these companies still advertise with Facebook. It's just like,
Yeah, they're trying to get everyone to
fuck.
drop from Facebook.
Jesus.
And the reason, like the motive, somebody tweeted out a little while ago, why are people going after Facebook? I think it was 617 report was like, why are people going after Facebook? And it's because they won't shut down speech they disagree with.
Right.
Like
they're not on Twitter. Yeah, they're not on
I mean,
Twitter.
they're calling it hate speech, and sure, there's some hate speech, but basically, conservatives have a voice on Facebook to a certain extent, and liberals don't like that, so they're pressuring companies to do something that's not really in their best
If
interest.
you shut down Facebook, right? Facebook had been shut down a month ago. You could have just walked around the streets of Ohio totally fine.
No one would have known.
That's right.
It would have been
bombarded
no
with
one would have
Would have been
pictures
nice and quiet, you know? I mean, you are now.
I might join the boycott.
Let me think here. Ramsey. Who's the BAM guy?
Emerald.
Emerald. Julia Child.
I'd say LeBron is up there, bro.
Hmm?
We're talking Ohio?
No.
Julia Child. I'm talking about famous chefs, you idiot.
Oh, damn it. I'm sorry.
Ohio.
I thought we were talking
Gordon
about
Ramsay?
I thought we were talking about recognizable people from Ohio.
BAM? The BAM guy? Get Emerald Lagasse sound, please, real quick.
Is Emerald from?
Let's hear that famous Cincinnati accent of his.